So, hey there, folks. I'm Chris Burkhardt. I'm president and founder of Placers. This is our How We Solve Problems series. What we're really doing is looking for trends from our customers and employees, and we discuss topics that seem timely and topical. I'm here with a special guest, Jessica Bloom. Jessica oversees Placers' sales team, which we call Flexible Solutions. I'm sure you're all sad not to hear Brian Saleo today. He had a birthday. It's a big milestone birthday. So he returns from holiday next week, and I'm sure you'll hear him loud and proud. A couple of things about Jess. Great leader of people, expert in sales and solutions, has spent a lot of time serving customers in the staffing industry. Jess, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here.
It's really good to have you. Jess, today's topic is near and dear to your heart. It's all around the concept of building solutions for prospects and customers and sort of taking the perspective of our customer. It's kind of how we do things. Actually, it's what Nth Degree is. It's seeing it from our customer's point of view. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt post-pandemic that more companies, small, medium, and large, are making the decision to use more gig workers. And it's across all departments. It's across different levels of the company. So what they're looking at is so much larger and more complex than it has been. Just starting off with this question, if any of our listeners has the task of selecting a staffing partner to think about something that could be a complex staffing solution, what should they even start to think about?
Well, I think that's a great question, because I think that how this used to start in companies was somebody would come to HR procurement, say, hey, I have this project. Can you get me a temp? And think that while the scope and the needs within organizations have changed dramatically of where they're using these temporary or contingent or contract workers, whatever they're called within the organization, the way that individuals are going about obtaining them hasn't really changed from a mindset perspective. They're still ordering, can I have a temp sort of mentality. And it's so different, and their needs are so different now. And that's really the fun part. That's what I enjoy. Starting the conversation from that standpoint, and then sort of exploring really what the needs are, really where they're at with hiring, to, like we said, start building that solution for them.
So let me pause there. So I think what I'm hearing is that for a long time, firms ordered temporary staffing kind of like maybe they ordered office supplies. Yes. Is that a sort of way, what came to mind as you were saying that it was a task.
Yes.
It was simpler. Gosh, for our listeners, our contracts used to be like 2 or 3 pages. Right now they're 12 pages because the world's just more complex today. So I'm just hearing you say that there's more that goes into it today, and they're using a flexible workforce in a more complicated way.
Yes. I mean, not only how they quote unquote hire is different, how they build the engagement within the organizations is different, and the roles that they're filling is different, and the term they're with companies is different. The days, thankfully, are gone of the temp entrance, the temp lunchroom. Well, you're only going to be here for a couple of weeks, and we're going to treat you as sort of this secondary workforce within the organization. All of that is different. So that sort of leads to that conversation of I need a temp should be different too, in the way that companies start thinking about how to fulfill needs within organizations, whether it's temporary for a project or longer term. All of that is changing, and it really rather dramatically changing.
Well, what's interesting about that, I love what you're saying, is that so many times we talk about the issues, the workforce and workplace issues of the day, the moment. Well, it used to be that compliance or just the mindset of business was to separate workers. It's true. We used to work with Avon back in the day. There was a separate lunch line, and Jess is nodding her head. The truth is, this was a very commonplace thing. That was the compliance move of the moment. Well, today we've got one culture, and labor is our core. but we need all these different kinds of talent. And by the way, work is like, it's not as permanent today. So work is project. So I need lots of talent, but wow, what a complex thing. How do you get it from lots of different companies and organize it? It's just a different problem today.
Right. And not only is that whole complexion, the speed that individuals need it is much quicker. And not I need somebody to help me unload boxes tomorrow. I need somebody to help me reprogram my whole IT systems. Like, the scope is much bigger, but the need is even faster.
Jess, I'd be curious. This is a little off script, but it's relevant to where you're going. I won't tell you how long I've been in this space, but when I first started, I was in accounting and financial staffing. And I remember our first few years, we had to educate CFOs and treasurers on the very concept of using interim talent in accounting and finance. It was viewed, what would be the right word, as a failure if you needed to use a temporary. Mm-hmm. It was viewed as insecure, like that's not safe to do. I think that things happened in every role in corporate America. Like a leader said, "Oh no, we don't use contractors." Where do you think it is today? And where is it everywhere? Every part of the business? Where do you think? Is there any place people don't use temporaries today?
I don't think so. I was hesitating there for a moment to think, well, let me think of some roles that may be life altering, and perhaps that's not a need, but I know that there's temporary doctors, pilots, something that you're trusting your life with, are still using a temporary or contract resource.
I always like to blow people's mind. The average length of employment for a little while for a public CEO was 15 months. Jess and I have customers that use temps longer than the average life of a public CEO. Can you tell me what's temporary? Like, if that doesn't mess with the mind.
Yeah.
What are the issues and challenges that someone faces in selecting a staffing firm based on the stuff we're laying out? What comes to mind?
So we're at an interesting, I think, crossroads with all of this ordering and trying to figure out the needs. You have individuals we've always done it this way. We've always called this service and ordered this way. You have individuals who may have never done it, but they're so used to ordering, sort of the Amazon effect. Get on, order it online, the person shows up in 2 days, which is, it can be done, but gosh knows what you're getting. And then it's sort of where we come in and slowing down the process, asking some questions, not doing it the way they've done before, but by changing it a little bit, getting them that fit in the long term, which is a better solution. And that whole sort of evolution to making those changes and how they want to buy. And I think I want to buy like this. And why can't you just give me somebody tomorrow? That creates a whole lot of fun conversations.
So would you define that Amazon effect? I think it's really important because it's a huge issue relative to the way, I guess we're all consumers, even if we're businesses. What's the influence been relative to people buying staffing?
So it's interesting because you can go online and order just as you would, I don't know, a household item on Amazon, a person to work at your company. But think about, say that to yourself and think about that.
Well, I don't know, it sounds like, wow, I like the convenience of it. I'm in the industry. I love the idea that I checked it off my list and that it's done.
Absolutely. And everybody does. But isn't your internal hiring process much more personalized than that? Can you imagine if somebody...
It's more complex.
Absolutely. And I think it's funny because when I sort of have those conversations and then ask how they would hire internal individuals, and is that the same process that they use? Do they post it and just, bring somebody in the next day without any conversations? And they laugh at me. Well, no, why would we do that? Well, these individuals are part of your culture, part of your organization. They deserve, and we should be having those same conversations to make sure that that match is what it needs to be as anybody who sort of is coming through the internal process.
It's really kind of fascinating. That's why this is such a good kind of back and forth, 15-minute kind of thing to listen to. Can you imagine reading about what we're talking about? It's so hard I couldn't get those words right, but with a follow-up question, I kind of get it. So we want the convenience of what the world expects from an e-commerce world today. That's very clear. Yet the process of hiring people into our businesses has lots of people involved. It's complex. There's different interviews, background screenings, all this stuff. And no one's figured out how to Amazon that. Not like and probably because that's an important way of vetting talent, making sure people are compliant. And I just would throw this out as just for your comment. A lot of times this whole thing creates a discussion where it's like, so, but I don't know what to do about it. I could be the head of HR, I could be the head of a plant, but it doesn't mean I have answers. And we spend a lot of time trying to help people balance these two needs, right? Speed, system, make it easy with just the natural complexities of hiring humans.
Yes. And you know what's interesting? Newer sales individuals come in and they'll create their order sheet and then they'll ask the client all these questions. Like some of them they know, but some of them, they have absolutely no idea what these answers are. And we expect them to know all the answers. And it's you can relate it to going to the doctor and the doctor asking you sort of how to cure yourself. Like that's what we do to clients. It's crazy.
So I notice you're having some heart issues. Would you like open heart surgery or angioplasty, right? Or whatever? What are you talking about? You're the doctor. But salespeople do that
all the time. Do you want to attempt to hire a candidate or a temporary candidate, or do you want to hire this person on directly? Just asking that without the preference of what those nuances are.
But I hear service. I hear someone wanting the customer to participate in the outcome. What is it that's unfair about that? Why is it wrong for that customer not to be able to answer that?
Well, it's like the same. Well, you know what? I think I pick open heart. I would like a couple weeks off. Like, what is that? You have no idea what medically is better for you. And it's, it's a dramatic example, of course. However,
funny.
Yes, but the clients don't understand maybe the nuances of why a temporary attempt to hire fit may be better versus a direct hire, what we're seeing in the market for candidates for the two types of roles, what that whole fulfillment process may look like. Maybe there's some new regulations that this doesn't work on a temporary capacity, but it needs to be direct hire. If we are truly doing our jobs, we need to learn what the roles are and then really consult of what the solution should be, not automatically filling the holes before we understand the whole sort of complexity of the position.
So if we use that e-commerce analogy one more time, it's basically as if customers keep placing orders online, but they're the wrong orders and they don't solve the problem.
Yes.
Part of what I'm hearing. And so there's something interesting to this. One of your greatest challenges is how to create an environment where a relationship feels comfortable talking about how they are going to procure, sharing information, engaging with your team. Thoughts? Such a big question, but how do you unpack that a little bit?
Well, I think what you said before that question was truly sort of at the heart of it. So they've ordered online, if you will, and bought this staffing, and it didn't work. It was a disaster. Why? Because of how they ordered it. And that's really where I like to start the conversation. So you've done this before. It didn't work out. Not that we need to dig through all the nuances of that, but like, let's talk about how it could be better. And in that conversation, you learn, well, we never had them meet with this person, and they interacted with them all the time and they didn't get along, or they didn't really understand the role. And we had to sort of terminate the relationship within, a couple of weeks. And we wanted this person here for months. In all of sort of those conversations, bubbles up what you need for that person to know and understand going into the position, what the client needs to know about their own role to make somebody successful in that. Because we all have these lists of the positions and the responsibilities and the interfaces and the goals and KPIs. But the one thing that I don't think we do a very good job of capturing is that emotional piece of it. When somebody comes into a new job and how they're feeling and how they're treated, you don't ever get to that part of the conversation until you start breaking it down and getting to know the people and really understanding what is needed in that role.
So it's very interesting. You look at Placer's website and we talk about the idea of flexible solutions. And I mean, folks, we do believe that one of our differentiators is that we try very hard to build solutions for customers. And that's just fancy pants talk, right? But we try very hard to gather information to help present what we think will solve a customer's problem. It used to be that worked really well. You'd ask customers questions and they gave you an answer, and it helped you sell. Why is that not working so well right now? It's like, I know we talk about it all the time.
I think that is equating in customers' heads who need the position filled a month ago to it's going to take too long. This feels like this is going to take way too much of my time. I'm already down a person, working overtime. This is just going to be another burden on me.
So what I hear you saying is sometimes the problem one of our customers feels is so urgent and tactical, but the way to solve it is strategic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a conflict.
Yes.
Holy moly. Because that's, of course, right? So you've got to stop the bleeding, back to your doctor's discussion, but it's really hard. That doesn't solve the greater issue, just stops the bleeding.
No. But if you allow us to start having the conversation, we may learn in the conversation that a piece of what that client is doing that is enabling them not to have the big, problem-solving conversation is that they are doing payroll. Well, guess what? We can fill that. We can fix that for you somewhat quickly and then figure out the bigger problem. It doesn't always mean long. There can be intermittent solutions to the big solution. And a lot of times they bubble out of, sort of different areas, but it's the willingness to partner and to have the conversations. And it doesn't need to be long conversations. They can be very efficient, quick conversations, but the results you get from that are so much better than just the order filling, I just need somebody here. I don't have time to talk to you. Nope, I can't meet with you sort of conversations.
So it seems like it used to be that the problems that our customers had were easier to solve, and we did an okay job. And now it's way more complex. And it seems like something's changed. This is a radical statement. It seems as if our customers don't know the answers to the questions that we ask sometimes. Reaction to that?
I think that's true. Because I do believe that there's multiple individuals that hold that hiring responsibility. You used to have that much more centralized. It really has been spread out. There's many more people that touch it. Yes. And if you think about it, our workforce has many more options in this area than they used to. You don't go to a company and work there for the next 30 years if you're lucky and retire, you are switching jobs regularly, quite often. And in doing so, you learn how to navigate sort of those interviews and networking and all those pieces that used to be a mystery. And it was so controlled by sort of the companies that you were interfacing with. Now that we have individuals who understand the process, we're creating this whole dynamic of, really coming together to fill roles, almost a 50-50, if you will. The candidate needs to be just as engaged as the client these days. And in that, you need to build sort of a clearer picture of what positions are, or individuals aren't going to stay. They have other options.
They certainly do in today's market. I think it seems like one of the challenges around all of this is, I think all people are similar in this respect. I don't know if, it's a comment on salespeople in general. We call someone and we start asking them questions, and it takes the rare individual to say, A, I don't know the answers, or B, to be truthful, I have no idea who's responsible for this in my company. We are spread all over the world. I can't even understand our org chart. And no, I have no idea what profile works here and what kind. The reality is we have to do a great job of being a resource that can be trusted about one of the most challenging discussions, which is that I don't have the answer.
Yes. Which nobody, I don't want to admit that. I'm sure you don't either. Nobody wants to admit that.
I would do anything in the world for you not to know that I didn't know the answer, right? Even if I thought you could help me.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a buyer figure out if they can trust the person sitting across from them? Age-old question.
I think you need to start learning about their company, their needs, their role. You need to start to be able to walk in their shoes a little bit. And I think by doing so, and you can come to sort of a common place of maybe understanding of where their challenge is, in that sort of common thread, I think you start to build trust. And we are often speaking to individuals, maybe aren't getting to the point of, I have an actual position I need your help with, but we're speaking to them regularly for months and months and months before we even have that opportunity to work on something. So it is my hope that the salespeople on our team are starting to build those relationships and not be transactional. And I think that is, you can say the same words in two different ways and it's taken totally different. It is my hope that you say that with a very consultative tone and you are truly interested in getting to know that person. And I think that feeling and that sort of transparency in how that comes across is how you earn that trust.
So if I'm a potential buyer of staffing services, workforce solution services, contingent workforce stuff, can I learn all I need to know just by looking at Placer's website or staffing industry website? Is that enough? Does that help me? I do that when I want to buy a compressor for the garage or a loaf of bread. I just go online and I read about it. So is that enough? Or what advice would you give someone on the steps?
Well, I think the interesting thing about staffing websites, I think ours looks fabulous, but to be fair, most of them kind of start looking the same once you're looking at them for a while. And in that sort of lies the challenge. It's a very personal decision to trust somebody to hire a new individual for your team, whether it's temporary or personal, or long term. You need to get to know, and you want to get to know and actually like the person that you're working with. That you can't see on the website, nor can you see what that company, the relationships that company has with the individuals that they're filling the roles with. All of this is so, the feeling and the understanding and the common sort of knowledge that everybody's sharing, and you can't read that off a website.
Well, there's a series of myths that are passed down, and one is, are you an expert in this underwater basket weaver that I'm looking for? Yes or no? Or do you have them? when in reality, a staffing firm spends a lot of time building relationships in the community to constantly have all kinds of talent come through the door to be able to help. And yeah, there might be a specialist, and we do help larger clients aggregate all the different specialists so they can have all that talent they need just when they need it. But it's interesting how people view buying simply based on an expertise versus all the things that you've talked about. If you had any sort of last and final summary to share, what would you say to someone pondering the topic of how to buy and workforce changes? Any last and final for our audience?
Say start the conversation. The end of the conversation does not mean that you're signing a contract and buying something that day, but you need to start having the conversation to understand, maybe how you can approach it differently. Maybe there's different ideas somebody else may have, or just share what's going on in the market.
So I think the key is to slow it down. And if you've got urgency, address it, but realize that a proper way to address this to make you happy may be to slow it down and do it right, do it longer, get to know firms differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jess, it's been a pleasure to have you. I can see that if you flip this around and think that this really isn't about selling best practices, but this is about the challenges of trying to navigate contingent workers, the trends, how to make sure you have people that can solve your problems. I hope you'll come back, because I think it's a really important part of what our clients are dealing with.
I would love to. Today was fun.
All right. Thank you.